The critical part of his testimony will be following the financial dealing, the approaches and promises that were made about the meeting and other meetings that may have occurred, and what he hoped to gain, apparently dirt on Hillary Clinton. He said, "I love it," when he was promised it, and how it tied to the Trump campaign, and what he knows about obstruction of justice by possibly the White House and others.
That's an important bit right there. Senator Richard Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, among those eager to hear what Donald Trump Jr. will have to say when he answers questions for the first time in front of a committee investigating Russian ties to U.S. politics. He's going to appear tomorrow for a private meeting with the Judiciary Committee. The eldest Trump son will be grilled on his Trump Tower meeting with that Russian lawyer, the firing of FBI Director James Comey, possible collusion between the Trump team and the Russians in an attempt to sway the election to his dad. Despite calls from Democrats for a public testimony appearance, this interview will take place behind closed doors with mostly staff, mostly aides, and a few senators in attendance. The Judiciary is one of 3 committees, remember, investigating Russia, in addition to Special Counsel Robert Mueller. With us to talk about all of it, Ashley Parker, White House reporter for The Washington Post and an MSNBC political analyst, Jeremy Bash, former chief of staff at the Pentagon and CIA, as well as former counsel to the House Intel Committee, and Nicole Wallace remains with us. So, Jeremy, answer what of this we believe to be true. What happens tomorrow? Is he sworn, first of all? Are there perjury implications, sworn or not? And are there Fifth Amendment implications if he decides to go that route, which I guess is unlikely?
There are perjury implications. You cannot lie to Congress, whether you're doing this through formal testimony or in a staff interview, which is the setting that will happen tomorrow. He probably will not be asked to raise his right hand and swear an oath, though he probably will be reminded by the chairman of the committee or the chief counsel that he has obligations to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And he probably does not have to formally invoke his Fifth Amendment privilege tomorrow. So it's a little bit less of a formal setting, but still a very high-stakes meeting for him, because after all, it's the committee and the Congress's real first shot at unpacking all of the lies that have been built up around this June 2016 meeting.
And Ashley Parker, his answers in an interview on Fox News are one thing. They're kind of contemporaneous, keeping it light. This really starts to be for keeps tomorrow. The Russia matter's been called the original sin of this administration. Is there any way you have to gauge the anxiety level while this bubbles along? Usually beneath the surface tomorrow, it'll boil up a bit.
Well, one thing going into this even a little earlier than tomorrow's testimony, but just as the Russia issue started to boil up, one issue that Trump advisors and especially lawyers to the president and to his son were trying to desperately convey was exactly what you said, this idea that especially in their business in New York real estate, that sort of fudging and fibbing and, bragging or misleading or even outright lying could almost be beneficial. There are a few groups of people you simply cannot lie to, and those include the feds, and those also include congressional testimony. And so I do think that's something they were working to instill in the president's son. This was, again, a little while ago, but I think there's anxiety anytime someone is testifying from the president's family before Congress, and especially not just about the testimony itself, but about the way it often causes the president to behave. These are the issues that just nag at him and will cause him to lash out or tweet or say something he shouldn't, that then sort of becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy that leads to more questions.
And Nicole Wallace, something tells me Ashley Parker and her colleagues will publish at around this time tomorrow night an account.
In your hour, never
I know,
mind.
I'm sorry. An account of what we believe happened behind closed doors in private tomorrow. You're a former White House comms director. How do you calm this?
Oh, listen, I mean, the Trump kids have had a terrible week communications-wise. Ivanka Trump was eviscerated in an op-ed in the New York Times, and sort of analysts and reporters and even people close to the president are calling Don Jr. Very less than flattering terms, really calling into question his judgment and his competence. sounds familiar to what they're saying about his dad now that it comes out of my mouth. I have to say, on the substance of what he will do tomorrow, I think that the more interesting sort of bucket of questions will be around his role in the cover story for that meeting. We now know that the deliberations aboard Air Force One en route back from Europe, where the president conjured up, at his direction, the president conjured up a communications document, a message, if you will, a cover story, it turns out to have been, for what that meeting at Trump Tower really was, is of great interest to all of the investigations that you ticked off, but especially Bob Mueller. And so I think if you bifurcate this, if you look at questions about possible obstruction of justice, the cover-up, and questions about the original sin, as you put it, the Russia ties, I think, for me, the more concerning communications endeavor would be around his role or those calls aboard Air Force One to craft that cover story for the meeting itself.
And Jeremy,
he ultimately dumped the emails and blew the cover story himself.
That's right.
So I think unpacking how that came to be would be of great interest.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.